It's not a party man, I see.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of shots. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good night, whatever time of day you are watching. This is the Victory Roll Wrestling YouTube. And joining me as always,
I am the Mark Cameraman 3, that guy that stands in your way at shows, Dylan Gilbert. And I think we've got a little business to attend to. We're finally getting back behind a camera.
Finally behind a camera. It only took us a small amount of time. Also, I'm the storyteller, Alex Braddock. I didn't say that a second ago. But, Dylan, we are starting something that we've talked about that we haven't quite figured out, but we are figuring out a top 4 of sorts.
Yes.
We have not figured out if that will be the Victory Roll more or what. We'll figure it out. I don't know. But top 4, and we figured what better to do than top matches of 2024.
Right.
And then we listed like 25 of them.
I think in total us fashion, these Rushmores are not necessarily going to be the definitive everybody agrees on best.
Correct.
I think as we get into this one, you'll see that it is very much this is our picks and why.
Yeah.
Because everybody's got a top 5, everybody's got a top 10. Who has top 4? The Victory Roll does.
We do. Fight us.
Because
anyway,
we always talk about what's your Rushmore of this, what's your Rushmore of that.
It's true.
And it's hard to pick 4, because when you have a 5th, something can sneak in. Yep. It doesn't sneak in on a 4th.
And then you end up like us, and we come up with 25 different matches. And we have to then put criteria on this situation. Criteria number 1 for today. Only a wrestler can appear one time on your list. If you sit there and go back top matches of 2024, you're going to say, Ospreay this, Ospreay that, Ospreay this and that. You're going to go...
Danielson, or Okada, or Yota Tsuji, or
Swerve,
Takeshita, Sabre. We get... hell, even Roman and Cody at this point.
They put on spangers.
I feel like I'm not going to have much representation, but let's just call it what it is. That WrestleMania was top to bottom perfect.
Oh yeah. And you said it perfectly off air. The most WWE Mania that has existed.
It was that Roman Cody, both the tag match and the main match were it's the most WWE Mania main eventy match of all time.
Correct.
It was a star-studded affair.
Mm-hmm.
But I lean a different way in the stuff that I love.
I lean a different way. Goes back to the criteria. So, criteria number 1. Wrestlers cannot repeat. If you have Ospreay once, you can't have Ospreay again. If you have Danielson once, you can't have Danielson again. Criteria number 2 quickly turned into, after we listed off our matches, of just going, number 1 is going to be this subject. Number 2 is going to be this subject. 3 and 4 are going to have these subjects. And we'll talk about those subjects when we get to them. But, buddy, I think we're ready to get into the Mount Rushmore of matches of 2024.
I say let's get into it.
So, I am going to bounce around from what our original plan was. I don't know what's first on your list. I don't know what's first on my list. But because of the criteria, it doesn't matter.
I don't think they're in a particular order. It is just the 4.
Fantastic. Then I'm going to start with criteria number 1 in this sense. Best feud for us in 2024, which led to the burn-off or whatever match in this feud. What do you have?
All right, so I'm going to start mine off bloody. And the match that set the internet ablaze and talked about had All Elite Wrestling gone too far. When a match starts with a man coming out to footage of him sitting in front of your childhood home burning while he sips his whiskey, you know that this is going to be a bloodbath, and Hangman Swerve lights out steel cage match at All Out. I love my blood and guts car crash wrestling, but technically in a storytelling sense, everything there was sound. Mm-hmm. The match itself was solid. It was violent, it was bloody, but it made so much sense to be that violent and to push things to that level because the man burned your home down.
Yeah.
And before that, the man whose home you burned down broke into your home and stood over your newborn child.
Yes.
You don't get more personal than that.
No.
And I think that was one of my favorite feuds.
I remember us watching All in London together. And then All Out was 2 weeks later. And we're like, we're not going to watch All Out because it'll be just like 2023 where it's kind of okay matches, but it'll be all right. and then they announced lights out steel cage. We're like, we're gonna pay for the pay-per-view.
Here's my $50, Mr.
Yes,
Khan.
thank you, Mr. Khan, for doing what you do. My list, my side of this is going to be no surprise to anyone. It's Toni Storm versus Mariah May at All in London, because my lord, say what you will and say what you want about us, but that feud and that turn and that push to All in London, walking in basically going, Mariah's not winning this because she just had a massive pop of a heel turn. Tony's going to take it home, do whatever. And then having Mariah May pull it out. And not only that, ends the feud, or so we thought. And now her legitimizing whatever the freaking
Legitimizing, folks.
words. English language 1, Alex Braddock 0. She has legitimized that title compared to even Toni before, who was doing phenomenal runs with that title. It just didn't have the impact, and now everyone wants to see that title off of her, which may happen, and it's going to date this video at the Australia Grand Slam show, where Toni Storm just put on just a class act on Collision 2 days ago.
One of the greatest promo segs in
My
AEW.
Lord. Just bravo. So that's criteria number 1. That's match number 1.
That's
Man,
one.
we got a long way to go.
We've got honorable mentions.
We got honorable mentions. I'm going to skip around because I don't want Dylan to guess my answers. So, match number 2 for us. 2 people that you see that you definitely haven't seen the match, but you know are going to put on bangers. I'll go first because you went first last time.
Yeah.
I have none other than Takeshita versus Mike Bailey in Major League Pro. New promotion, upstart with
Scott D'Amore.
Scott D'Amore.
Bringing Maple Leaf Pro back.
Maple Leaf Pro. It was technically for the AEW International title, which at the time, even Bailey was looking like he may go sign with AEW, and what a way to sign than with taking
a title
the
and
international
showing
belt
up
home.
with it.
Yes. So I went back and watched that match because, once again, you have the top 25 matches of 24, and you have this long list of Ospreay matches and Danielson and this, that, and the other. And then at the very end, there's like, hey, if you haven't heard, this one was a 5-star from Meltzer. And I go, let me go watch this match. Chef's kiss. Callis on commentary for the whole show anyway, because he was a commentator for the show, and then having Takeshita come out, Bailey hard hitting. I mean, Bailey got his nickname Speedball with how fast he hits, and then you turn around and you take the sexiest jaw destroyer Takeshita and mash them together. Wonderful match. And it's on YouTube, so go check it out.
So I slightly misunderstood this criteria, and now I'm gonna say it's the same. This is the same 2 people, but
Answer it how you want to.
I'm gonna pivot this. I originally said Fletcher versus Ospreay at Full Gear, but if you're talking about the one that you like, did you catch this one? And it happened on TV. On free TV was the first Fletcher Ospreay AEW match on Dynamite.
Yes.
Which I think, like, the Full Gear was, like, the star maker for Fletcher in a lot of ways. Like, because Ospreay was just like, there's no way Ospreay's going to lose at Full Gear, and then he takes the loss. But the match they had on Dynamite, I remember being glued to the set thinking, like, this is a New Japan match on free television, and Ospreay hits a hidden blade to the face of Fletcher, which he's only done to a few people.
Very few.
And it's a very protected move, and he does this to Fletcher like twice.
Yep.
And I mean, how better to introduce like just who Fletcher is to an American audience than have him and Will Ospreay absolutely cave each other's head in on TBS.
Yep.
It's Impractical Jokers reruns, baseball highlights, and Will Ospreay killing Kyle Fletcher.
Yes.
Wild.
That one might be on Max, depending on how early of 2024 that was on.
Possibly.
Because they went back and put a bunch of 2024.
It will be
Max.
at some point.
It will be at some point, or at least we hope and pray. Please just put pandemic era in 2021. Dynamite's back on Max, please.
Surprisingly good.
Surprisingly great. A lot of great feuds out of that one. I mean, even their full gear match, phenomenal. I mean, like you said, I thought we explained the criteria out good enough, but no, it's.
So I took it as just
I mean, come on.
You knew
Yeah.
these two guys would kill it.
Yeah. But I mean, either way, Dynamite. A lot of people don't watch weekly television, so
Right.
I can definitely understand that. Criteria number 3. Criteria number 3 is the match that meant the most to you. I'll have you go. We'll just keep alternating who goes first. I'll have you go because I think I know what the match could be for you, but we'll see what happens.
I feel like all of my matches could have very well slid into any category.
Right.
This one was one that I couldn't put in best feud because there was not physical contact until the bitter end of the feud. But talk about matches that meant something, a match that I just sat and watched silently, just taking it all in. But getting to watch what's over a decade later, Bryan Danielson and Nigel McGuinness lock up on, again, free TV.
Wow.
Grand Slam.
Yeah.
Nigel McGuinness, Bryan Danielson, after a decade plus apart, after a couple of years of McGuinness trash talking from commentary. And I remember when he came out and called out Danielson, that tear hit as the OG Ring of Honor fan being like, oh my God, he not only is he cleared to wrestle,
Yeah.
but he's coming back for his greatest rival.
Yeah.
Take my money.
And, I mean, at the time, he had just came back for All in London, doing a Battle Royal where he was doing some decent spots, but he was not going full tilt. It was a Battle Royal, or I think it was a gauntlet match, or something along those lines. And we were like, oh, okay, he just does a guest spot, he's done. And like you said, Danielson wasn't cleared at the time. He comes out, cuts the promo, and he's like, no, I'm here. I'm here to fight. Let's go.
The beauty of it being, I called it a mile and a half out, and they did it anyway, and it was perfect. I said, you have Born for Greatness play.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't come out. And you have McGuinness sitting there in the ring talking about this coward Danielson scared to show up, and then final countdown.
Yeah, you just didn't play my music right. Yeah.
And they play final countdown, and all the hairs on my arms stood up.
Yep.
It was just that, it was that perfect moment, and I was laid back on the couch, and I just sat forward and rocked forward onto my knees, and I was just watching the whole match, just staring a hole through the TV as they put on a technical masterclass.
It was a technical masterclass. Were we recording the podcast at that point, or did we stop recording?
I'm not sure. I know we talked about because we talked about our highlights for the week, and I remember talking about tearing up watching McGuinness cut the promo.
Yes.
Because it was just holy crap, this wave just...
If I find the video and get it to my editor, the link will either be here or there, and just click it, and that's the whole podcast episode that we talked about it. Me personally, because this is going to result in another link, nice segue, the match that meant the most to me, it's not Ospreay Fletcher, it's not Ospreay Okada, it's not Ospreay Danielson or Ospreay Swerve. It is none other than Ospreay versus MJF at All in London.
I almost put it on that list, but I knew it was going to be on yours.
It's on mine. I will link the podcast episode because I go on a 30-minute tangent about what it means for me.
Mm-hmm.
Watching Ospreay from almost the start of his career in Progress, becoming the aerial assassin, basing some of my moves off of him, and then coming out against one of top guys in AEW, one of the top promos in my Rushmore of promos, which stay tuned, we'll make that at some point, and coming out and having Ezio Auditore from Assassin's Creed talk to him. I got chills. I teared up for wrestling for the first time in Lord knows how long. It was 3 years
Besides
ago.
one you were in?
Besides a match that I was in.
Okay.
He's got to call me out.
I do.
But that match was amazing because if for the first time ever I wasn't cheering for USA either. That's the part that's fantastic, is that every time there's a USA versus something, you always cheer for USA, and for that first time ever, you're not cheering for America, even though the show is in London. So yeah, for me, Ospreay, MJF, all in London. Criteria number 4. You've never heard of these guys, and we're going to tell you to go watch them. Essentially is what the criteria is. We've talked about what your match is.
Well, I changed it last second, so now we have
Amazing.
it. Think long, think wrong, buddy.
It's typically how these recordings go.
Oh, yeah.
Think long.
Literally,
think long.
I made the decision before I closed my phone and walked in here to record.
Great. Awesome. Well, I'll go first because it's my turn to go first. Remember how I texted you earlier this week and was like, hey, you got a Rev Pro subscription for a month. Hope you don't mind.
Not mad at it.
My number 4 is none other than Michael Oku versus Luke Jacobs at Rev Pro Anniversary Show.
You sold me a Michael Oku and Rev Pro.
Michael Oku, Rev Pro, has put on bangers with Ospreay twice now, with MJF when he was doing his whole international title, USA title run.
How he has not gotten signed off of some of those matches is astounding.
I don't know. Unless he's got a contract with Rev Pro. I don't know how Rev Pro works.
Sign Oku, you cowards.
But he goes in to their anniversary show. This is, I believe, the same show that Mina Shirakawa, wins the women's title. But they go into the main event having put on 3 or 4 bangers themselves throughout the past 3 years. Luke Jacobs is this up-and-coming guy that is essentially, in my opinion, the next Gunther. Walter. Whatever you want to call him.
Sold.
Yes. And then Michael Oku, who can sell anything and make you believe it, go on and put what I will call not a perfect wrestling match, which is the kind of matches that I love. That if you are inside of the business, you can pick up on the tiny things that go wrong and they make it look real the whole time through. Chef's kiss. Rev Pro, Michael Oku, Luke Jacobs at their 12th anniversary show. Might even be a 5-star. I don't know off the top of my head. Phenomenal match. What do you got, buddy? Surprise me, because you want to surprise me.
The one that we talked about is actually an honorable mention because I still think it is one of my favorites of the year. But for the match that you don't know, you should know. If you have not heard the names Mance Warner and Effie, these two had arguably one of the best feuds on the independents this year. Former friends turned into bitter enemies, and I had 3 different matches that I was going to put into this spot, and somehow forgot about one, and the second I remembered it. It's like, oh yeah, it had some of my favorite spots of the year. Mance Warner versus Effie at the Cage of Survival.
Ooh.
You want to talk about, this is another one of those times. I have 2 cage death matches on my top 4. I have a type.
He's got a problem.
But I think that's another classic case of you take a match and you take a feud and you push a feud and you push a feud and you push a feud, and that is like a feud that needed that match and not a match that needed, or a stipulation that needed a match instead of a match that needed stipulation. These guys have pushed to this point. Mance Warner stabs Effie in the back. They were 2 of the top guys in GCW. There's all this bad blood, and they keep pushing and pushing and pushing, and Effie gets that win over Mance Warner by going through glass, flaming glass at one point. I mean, it is wild. It is a total car crash, but it is, through the entirety of it, not a perfect wrestling match. There's a lot of, I think people would call them botched spots, where, stuff doesn't look as clean as it should or whatever. Yeah. But what that looks like to me is 2 guys that are in a fist fight for their lives.
Yeah. You go 20 minutes in a fist fight and see if you can stand on a tightrope.
Right. I mean, there's literally a spear through part of the cage to a bed of barbed wire at one point.
That's dope.
It's a visually shocking match, but I mean, it's taking that you take that thing and you push it to this logical conclusion of it needs to go to the Cage of Survival.
Yeah.
And they've since gone on. They just put on another banger in Hammerstein a couple days ago to date this video. Effie finally is GCW champion, and this is one of the matches that set that feud into motion. That was in Joey Janela's Spring Break. I didn't bring that up. Or no, the next one was Spring Break. So they had the Cage of Survival, they had an I Quit at Spring Break, and then there was just this whole cavalcade of insanity between them of just like Mansoor ducking Effie. Led to Art of War Games, Alley catch turns on Effie.
Yep.
I mean, this whole this feud going almost, I think, a little over a year
It was close
to finally get to a title win. But I think this was this was where it kicked off for me. This was where it was like, oh, they're not playing around.
No.
So Cage of Survival, Mance Warner, Effie. Mance Warner's going on at TNA. And Effie said he's fine being on the Indies forever. So go see him in a town near you because he's fantastic.
He's pretty good at what he does.
So I guess now we get into honorable mentions.
Yeah, go ahead. Throw in honorable mentions because I'll just list off 5-star matches if we haven't already at this point.
So I think one of the things we talked about before is because we work so closely with Pro Wrestling 225.
Yep.
It is very easy to just go off all the stuff that we witnessed up close.
Right.
Because there's something special about being in the room for anything.
Yeah.
Even more so when you know the people and you've got your vested opinions based on their character and the person you kind of root for or root against these characters that you're literally you're in there mixing it up with. I'm dodging them on the outside.
Yep.
So just a quick few to throw off from 225 that were just some of my favorites this year. We had Fatal 4-Way Iron Man match. Jordan Jaw, Wes Warren, Braxton Hunter, Vladimir Koloff. An hour-long match that's on YouTube and flies by.
Yeah.
I still have watched it a couple times and it's like this. You mean to tell me that wasn't 20 minutes?
Right. Right.
Vladimir Koloff, Christian Blake, 225 Mania. It's one of the first times I've seen blood in the state of Louisiana. Two guys that are doing this at a high level and had just built and built and built to this war.
And are still building to the next one.
And I don't know how they're going to top this one. So,
yeah,
when it comes crashing down, it's, whew.
Mm-hmm.
I also just have to do a little bit of kiss-assing to my partner here. The Pillar versus Hunter Law and Purple Haze, Double Jeopardy, the retirement match.
Also known as the retirement match. Yep.
In a match that, I pay attention to wrestling, so I'm walking in going there's no way in hell they're going to win it. Why would they give him the title and let him leave with the title? And then when they won that match, it just it was a special moment to be there for.
Very much so.
It's also my last show as a fan. I got so gassed up watching that show that I was in production the next show.
I did something right, guys.
And these next two was probably my favorite show of the year. It happened on my birthday. We had the Disobey Triple Threat. JTM, Simon Phillips, and Brandon Collins, all guys that are doing stuff on a ridiculous level.
Mm-hmm.
And just that chemistry was unreal. They beat the hell out of each other. And if you see any clips of said match, I'm probably in the background with my jaw down because they were just constantly, the entire match, it was just more oh my God.
Can confirm.
Heads lopped off, man. It was wild. And then, because, again, I have a type, Carcraft Wrestling is my favorite wrestling. Lucha Lacura, Vladimir Koloff in a match that I think got kind of announced day of. I think there was some shifts in the. I think there were some
shenanigans. I do not believe it was changed day of. I believe the no disqualification.
I think the stipulation was added day of. Just because card is always subject to change, but that stipulation got added day of, and I think it made that match even better.
Yeah.
It was already going to be great. Those two guys are fantastic, but it was even better because there was such a it was the perfect way to kick off a Fright Night or finish off a Fright Night. There was a cheese grater. Someone got hit with a PlayStation 2,
which we still don't know where it came from and where it
went. We had chair shots. We had trash cans. We had a scaffold bump.
Yeah.
It
was good times.
It was wild. Yeah. It was something truly to behold. And then just outside of the stuff we work on was actually going to be on my list, and I kicked it down last second. Atticus Cogar, Drake Younger, Light Tube Death from 7 Wrestling is on YouTube. Technically proficient wrestlers that are using deathmatch elements. You're taking a sound wrestling match with basically a story contained to that 20-something minutes that just uses the deathmatch elements, but it's two guys that can wrestle. And it's not just two guys going poof, 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 poof. It's wrestling. And blood.
And blood. You can't forget about the blood part. Super quick for me, honorable mentions. anything that was rated 5-star this year. It's a good match. I feel like I have to say that because you're going to have at least one or two people be like, oh, but you didn't have this match on there. That's why we put the criteria on it. Any match that's 5-star, we personally believe, probably should have been 8.
The entirety of WrestleMania 40, both nights, we know it was amazing.
It was a good pay-per-view, both nights, to the point that we're...
live event, pal.
I can make a comment, but I'm going to hold back. But yes, top 4 phenomenal matches. 2024 was a heck of a year for wrestling. We're excited for 2025. Super quick, because he mentioned so much about 225. I will put the link down to the 225 Unleashed channel in the description. Go look down there. Go check out any match. 95% of the talent is good. The 5% is not great. But I'm at least okay.
But you're getting there, buddy.
I'm getting there. Anyway, whether it's been a good morning, a good afternoon, a good evening, or good night, thank you for watching. Hit the subscribe button so you can see the next stuff that we put out. And Rushmores.